Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling completely drained? Not because someone yelled at you, not because you had a fight, but because somehow, after talking to that person, you felt smaller, more confused, and less like yourself. What's frightening is that the most toxic people rarely announce who they are. They don't wear warning signs. They don't always insult you. Sometimes they're charming, funny, supportive, and even incredibly kind until the moment they quietly begin to steal your peace. And here's something most people never realize. The smartest people don't waste their energy trying to defeat toxic people in arguments. They don't try to prove who's right. They don't spend hours explaining themselves. Instead, they follow a few simple principles that make manipulation almost impossible. Today, we're going to explore 8 powerful habits that emotionally intelligent people use to protect themselves without creating unnecessary conflict. And make sure you stay until the end, because the final habit may completely change the way you approach every relationship in your life. 1. Trust your instincts before you trust their words. Have you ever met someone who seemed perfectly nice, yet something inside you whispered that something wasn't right? You couldn't explain it. There was no obvious red flag. Nothing they said sounded offensive, yet your body felt tense, your mind became cautious, and you couldn't shake the feeling that you should keep your distance. Most people ignore that feeling. They tell themselves they're overthinking. They convince themselves they're being unfair or judgmental. But what if that quiet discomfort is actually your greatest source of protection? Your brain processes thousands of tiny details every second: facial expressions, inconsistencies in speech, unnatural pauses, subtle changes in tone, body language that doesn't match the words. Long before your conscious mind notices anything, your subconscious has already connected the dots. Smart people don't blindly accuse others, but they also don't ignore their own intuition. Instead of rushing into trust, they slow down, they observe, they let time reveal what first impressions cannot. Because sometimes the biggest mistake isn't trusting the wrong person, it's ignoring yourself. 2. Patterns reveal character better than promises. Anyone can say the right thing. Anyone can apologize. Anyone can promise they've changed. Words are easy. Consistency is difficult. Many toxic people survive on second chances because they're excellent communicators. After hurting someone, they know exactly what to say. I didn't mean it. It won't happen again. You misunderstood me. And for a moment, everything feels fixed. Until it happens again and again and again. Smart people pay attention to repetition because repeated behavior is rarely an accident. It's a pattern, and patterns reveal character. Instead of asking, "What did they say today?" they ask, "What have they consistently shown me over the past 6 months? Do they keep their promises? Do they take responsibility for mistakes? Do they treat strangers with the same respect they show their friends? Do their actions support their words?" The truth about people isn't hidden in special moments. It's hidden in ordinary ones. When nobody is watching, when they have nothing to gain, that's where character lives. 3. Boundaries are not walls. They're self-respect. Many of us were taught that being a good person means saying yes, being available, being understanding, being patient. But without realizing it, that mindset can invite people to cross lines they should never cross. It usually starts small. A favor that becomes an expectation, a joke that feels uncomfortable, a late-night phone call that interrupts your peace, an invasion of your personal time. Every time you tolerate something that violates your values, you quietly teach others that it's acceptable. Smart people understand something different. A boundary isn't about controlling someone else's behavior. It's about deciding what you will and will not allow into your own life. You don't need to yell. You don't need to explain yourself for 20 minutes. Sometimes a simple sentence is enough. "I'm not comfortable with that. I won't be available. That doesn't work for me." The people who truly respect you won't be offended by your boundaries. Only those who benefited from your lack of them will complain. And that's exactly why boundaries matter. 4. Stop trying to save people who don't want to change. Some people spend years believing that enough love can fix anyone. If they're patient enough, understanding enough, forgiving enough, eventually the other person will become better. But life rarely works that way. Real change only happens when someone chooses it for themselves. You cannot force growth, you cannot force accountability, and you certainly cannot heal someone who refuses to acknowledge they're hurting others. The longer you try to rescue someone who doesn't want help, the more pieces of yourself you lose along the way. Your confidence begins to fade, your standards become lower, You start accepting behavior you once promised yourself you would never tolerate. Smart people know the difference between compassion and self-sacrifice. They can care deeply about someone while recognizing that love alone cannot transform another human being. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for them and for yourself is to stop carrying a burden that was never yours to begin with. If you've made it this far, you've probably realized something important. Protecting yourself from toxic people isn't about becoming cold, it's about becoming aware. And the next 4 habits may be the difference between constantly feeling emotionally exhausted and finally reclaiming your peace. 5. Control your reactions, and you remove their power. One of the biggest mistakes people make when dealing with toxic individuals is believing they have to win the argument. They explain. They defend themselves. They try to prove the facts. They spend hours replaying conversations in their minds, thinking of better responses they wish they had said. But manipulation often isn't about logic, it's about emotion. Many toxic people feed on your reactions. Your frustration reassures them that they still have influence over you. Your anger keeps the conversation alive. Your tears make them feel powerful. The smartest people understand that the greatest victory isn't having the last word. It's refusing to give away emotional control. Imagine someone deliberately trying to provoke you. Instead of reacting immediately, you answer calmly. You don't match their energy. You don't raise your voice. You don't explain yourself over and over. You simply acknowledge what was said and move on. Suddenly, the game changes. Without emotional fuel, manipulation loses its effectiveness. This doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It means choosing when and where to express them. Your emotions deserve respect, but they should never become someone else's weapon. The less reactive you become, the more difficult it becomes for toxic people to control your behavior. And over time, many of them simply lose interest because they can no longer get what they came for. 6. Be extremely selective about who gets close to you. Many people carefully choose their investments. They protect their money. They research before making important decisions. Yet they hand out access to their time, trust, and emotional energy far too easily. Smart people do the opposite. They know that relationships shape identity. The people around you influence your habits, your confidence, your beliefs, and even your future decisions. Spend enough time around negativity, and pessimism begins to feel normal. Stay close to chronic critics, and eventually you'll start criticizing yourself. Surround yourself with drama, and peace starts feeling unfamiliar. That's why emotionally intelligent people don't let everyone into their inner circle. They're friendly with many, but vulnerable with very few. Trust is earned gradually. It isn't built through charming conversations or impressive first impressions. It's built through consistency, reliability, respect, and time. They understand that access to their private life is a privilege, not an entitlement. The strongest relationships aren't the ones formed the fastest. They're the ones tested through experience. By carefully choosing who gets close, they don't isolate themselves from the world. They simply protect the environment where they grow. 7. Walking away doesn't require permission. Many people stay trapped in unhealthy relationships because they believe they owe an explanation. They think they must convince the other person to understand. They rehearse long speeches. They prepare evidence. They hope for closure. But closure isn't always something another person can give you. Sometimes it's something you choose for yourself. The truth is, toxic people often don't listen to understand. They listen to argue, to redirect blame, to make you question your own memories. The more you explain, the more opportunities they have to pull you back into the cycle. Smart people recognize when a conversation is no longer productive. And when that moment comes, they stop trying to be understood by someone committed to misunderstanding them. Leaving doesn't always have to be dramatic. Sometimes it's simply responding less, creating distance, declining invitations, choosing silence over conflict, allowing the relationship to fade naturally instead of forcing one final confrontation. You don't need everyone's approval to protect your own mental health. You don't need permission to choose peace. The people who truly care about you will respect your decision, and those who don't were probably never respecting you in the first place. 8. Put your peace above people's opinions. Perhaps the hardest lesson of all is accepting that some people will dislike the healthier version of you. The moment you stop saying yes to everything, the moment you establish boundaries, the moment you stop tolerating disrespect, someone will probably say you've changed. They may call you distant, selfish, cold, difficult. But often, what they're really saying is this: you no longer make my life as easy as you used to. Smart people don't measure their worth by how many people approve of them. They measure it by whether they can look in the mirror and feel at peace with their choices. Because constantly sacrificing yourself to keep others comfortable isn't kindness. It's self-abandonment. Real confidence isn't built by pleasing everyone. It's built by staying true to your values even when doing so disappoints others. Ironically, when you stop chasing approval, the relationships that remain often become stronger, because the right people don't love you for your endless availability. They love you for your honesty, your authenticity, and your self-respect. Conclusion: here's the truth that changes everything. The goal in life isn't to eliminate toxic people. You can't. You'll encounter difficult personalities at work, in friendships, in families, and sometimes even in places where you least expect them. The real goal is to become someone they can no longer control, someone who trusts their instincts, someone who watches actions instead of empty promises, someone who sets boundaries without guilt, someone who refuses to sacrifice their own well-being trying to fix another person, someone who stays emotionally steady under pressure, someone who carefully protects their inner circle, someone who knows when to quietly walk away, and most importantly, someone who understands that peace is not something you find. It's something you choose. Every conversation you decline, every unhealthy relationship you outgrow, every boundary you enforce, every moment you decide to value yourself just a little more than yesterday. Those choices slowly build a life where manipulation loses its grip and genuine connection has room to grow. Because in the end, the smartest people aren't the ones who win every argument. They're the ones who no longer need to argue at all. They've learned that protecting their energy is far more valuable than proving they're right. And once you truly understand that, toxic people don't disappear. They simply lose their power over you.
This is what it feels like. Yes, this is it. Go, Andy. Wow. Thanks for watching. See you next time.